Thoth's most powerful secret only manifests when your soul is ready. And if you pressed play on this video, then something big is about to happen. You didn't get here by accident. Even if you clicked by mistake, this moment is what will separate those who remain trapped in the old reality from those who will finally access the divine state. And I will demonstrate this to you in the next few minutes. Because the truth is that most people manifest the opposite of what they desire every day without even realizing it. They believe they are creating a new life, but they continue to vibrate with fear, doubt, and lack. The result? The universe only reflects what you feel, not what you ask for. And that is why Thoth did not leave this teaching to just anyone. It is reserved for those who have already begun to sense that something is wrong with the world that has been sold to us as a reality. If you watch to the end, you will understand why your life has not changed yet and what must happen for everything to begin to respond to your highest vibration. This could be the turning point that your soul has been waiting for lifetimes, and I will guide you through it. If this message resonates with you, leave a like. It's your way of letting us know that you are in tune. And if you truly feel that you belong in this space of awakening and awareness, consider subscribing to the channel. It's the most direct way to support our mission and access content reserved for our brightest circle. Every gesture creates resonance, and yours makes a difference. Now, take a deep breath, because the secret is about to be revealed. What is inside you and inside me is the power that can do anything. It rises above everything that is high. It penetrates deeper than everything that is deep. You have already tried everything: visualizations, affirmations, guided meditations, courses, mind maps, gratitude journals. You have worked on limiting beliefs, reprogrammed your subconscious, read books, followed gurus, attended live sessions, wrote mantras, practiced that feeling as if it were already here. And yet it seems like the world out there is not moving. The results are not appearing as promised. And you start wondering, in the silence of your mind, what is going wrong? This is the most dangerous part of the spiritual path because it doesn't seem dangerous. It seems spiritual, but this is where most people get stuck for years or forever. There is an almost invisible trap on this path, a subtle programming that says, keep doing what you're doing and wait for the universe to respond. And this is where the error creeps in. The problem is not what you do, it's what you vibrate while you do it. Most people practice manifestation techniques by vibrating deficiency. They say to trust, but the whole process is driven by a feeling of waiting, of neediness, of not yet here. It's like saying, I am prosperous with a tight heart because your credit card is maxed out. It's like saying, I am loved while your body still carries the burden of abandonment. The universe doesn't hear the words, it hears what's behind them. And then spirituality becomes a performance, a vibrational game. The person says they believe, but they vibrate doubt. They say they let go, but they hold on. They say they know, but they keep checking the reality clock to see if the desire has arrived. This is the invisible pattern that traps even the most aware. And all of this happens because we've been taught to wait. Wait for the sign, wait for the alignment, wait for the right moment, wait for the result, wait for the answer, wait for the universe. But the truth is, waiting is the opposite of manifesting, because the waiter confirms that they don't have it yet. And vibrationally, that confirmation is all the universe needs to keep you exactly where you are. Thoth never said, wait for the universe to answer. He said, know thyself. And knowing thyself, in this context, is much more than just ordinary self-awareness. It is recognizing that you are the same source that creates, attracts, transforms, and manifests. Not when the time is right, but in the exact instant you align yourself with what already is. The mistake is not in the technique, but in the identity. Most people try to attract something that only manifests when you become the kind of person who naturally experiences it. But as long as you position yourself as someone who doesn't have it yet, someone who is doing it to get it, you vibrate separation, you vibrate future, you vibrate absence. And that vibration is what keeps your reality as it is. Imagine an actor on stage. If he is to project confidence, he cannot fake confidence, he has to become it. The body changes, the breathing changes, the posture changes, the presence changes, the audience feels it, and the universe works exactly the same way. It does not respond to intention, it responds to embodied vibration. And that only happens when you stop acting who you are and start being who you are. True manifestation does not come from technique, it comes from the fusion of identity and certainty. There is no more I will do this to see if it works. There is only I am this, and therefore it is already done. It is not about appearing, it is about embodying, and that is where most people get stuck. Because embodying means letting go of the old version of yourself. It means letting go of the role of someone in need. And that's scary because that role is comfortable, familiar, safe. But it's also what keeps you stagnant. Right now you may feel like something inside you is shifting, and it is because the truth doesn't knock politely. It breaks in. It knocks down illusions that seemed logical. It shatters the idea that the universe works by merit or effort. It shows that everything is already created, and that the only real work is to stop playing the character that still thinks it has to wait. And that's where the real power begins to awaken. Because now you are about to discover the turning point, the one that separates those who live in constant trying from those who become masters of vibrational manifestation. And it is exactly at this point that everything begins to change. Because the secret that once seemed external, something distant that you had to chase, suddenly reveals itself as something that has always been there inside, latent, silent, and instead of chasing it, you begin to move as someone who already is, as someone who already has. Because waiting ceases to make sense when you understand what the ancients called the divine state. But what is this state really? It is not an emotion. It is not a moment of euphoria. It is not something that only appears when everything is going well. The divine state is an internal field, a frequency of consciousness, an absolute alignment with your true nature. It is the point where you do not desire. You live as someone who is already realized. You do not beg. You radiate. You do not need to prove anything to anyone, not even the universe, because you already vibrate as the cause, not the effect. This is the place where time begins to behave differently. And no, this is not a spiritual metaphor. It has already been observed in the laboratory. Modern quantum physics, especially in studies of wave function collapse and the observer effect, confirms what the ancient initiates have always said. Time is not linear and reality is not fixed. It responds in real time to the consciousness that observes it. You have probably felt it before, even if you didn't know how to explain it. Moments when everything seems to happen too fast or too slow, or when everything aligns through perfect synchronicities. It is not luck. It is not coincidence. It is a direct reflection of your inner state that shapes the flow of reality. Time exists only as long as you believe in it. But in the divine state, time collapses because everything you desire already exists, and the only thing that separates you from it is your perception of separation. That is why, when you enter this state, you no longer expect results. You no longer need proof. Because the certainty you carry inside is so solid, so alive, so real, that the external world no longer has the power to define who you are. The external becomes only a consequence, a reflection, a delayed mirror. And this is where the silent magic begins. Things change, people reappear, opportunities align, synchronicities accelerate. But everything comes as an answer, not as a cause, because you have already become what you sought. And that is why Thoth never spoke of attracting something. He spoke of recognizing the truth that already is. Not as a philosophical concept, but as an energetic experience. In this state, even your language changes. You don't say, I am waiting for abundance. You say, I am abundance in motion. You don't say, one day I will find love. You walk as someone who already lives in love. Because your vibration is not trying to achieve something, it is already expressing it. And reality inevitably responds. Because it has no choice, it always responds to the dominant vibration of your being. But here is the most powerful detail, and one that almost no one teaches. You don't need the world to change first to access this state. State comes first. State is not dependent on external circumstances. It is an internal decision, a choice of consciousness. Choose to vibrate as someone who already has. Even if your bank account says otherwise, even if your body still feels fear, even if the world seems chaotic. Because it is precisely in that contrast that power reveals itself. And when you maintain that state, even in the face of absence, even in the face of apparent emptiness, The universe begins to collapse time and form around you because you have stopped reacting, you have started creating. And then something deeper happens. The transformative frequency when the new you takes over. It is in that moment when the outside still looks the same but your inner world is no longer what it used to be, that something profoundly transformative begins to happen. Because instead of trying to fix the world out there, you shift your focus to the one thing that has always been in your control, who you choose to be. And that choice, though invisible to others, changes absolutely everything. The key has never been to try to fix reality. The key is to adjust the frequency of the being that is experiencing that reality, because reality is not a fixed place. It is a real-time reflection of your vibrational field. How the world reacts to you is based on who you are choosing to be as you live. And that who is not the name you were given, nor your profession, nor the identity you have constructed from past experiences. That who is the vibrational state you hold. It is the version of you you choose to embody. And this is where the silent question arises that changes everything. Who would I be if I already had everything I desire? How would I think? How would I feel? How would I move through the world? Because the universe does not respond to your desire to change. It responds to the clarity of who you choose to be. When that identity is fully embraced, even if everything around you still says otherwise, you break the cycle of the old reality because the field around you has no choice. It obeys, it bends, it begins to realign everything, from the most subtle to the most material, to match the new state you are transmitting. But be careful, entering that identity is not acting. It is not pretending that everything is fine. It is not uttering positive sentences while you tremble inside. It is living the vibration of it is already here, even when nothing seems to happen. It is making decisions like someone who has already arrived. It is holding the posture like someone who already has it. It is moving in the world with the silent certainty of someone who is already living what he asked for without asking any more. And this requires no effort. It requires choice and repetition, because the conditioned mind will try to take you back. It will tell you that you are fooling yourself, that it is better to wait a little longer, that it is not time yet. But the more you hold the vibration of the new, the more reality begins to rearrange the stage. Small details shift, people reposition themselves. Opportunities that seemed blocked begin to open up, not by accident, but because you have become incompatible with the old frequency. And the more you stay grounded in that new state of being, the more the power you have always had becomes clear. Because now you no longer react to reality. You command it, you shape it, you influence the field with your presence, without shouting, without proving anything, simply by being. This shift in identity is the bridge, the transition point between the world of trying and the field of inevitable manifestations. And when you realize this, a new kind of restlessness begins to emerge. How do I make this new state my default? How do I make this vibration my base, my home, my natural way of being? And this is exactly where something that could be one of the most powerful tools to support this new frequency of being comes into play: neurofusion. Contrary to what many people think, changing your reality does not depend only on positive thinking or superficial visualizations. What really transforms is the vibrational fusion between identity, emotion, and repetition. And that is what neurofusion does. Imagine that your mind is like an operating system. Throughout your life, you have been programmed by experiences, memories, beliefs, traumas, words, images, rules. Everything has been stored, repeated, and solidified in your neural networks. And it is based on that system that you see life, that you interpret events, that you react to the world, and above all, that you vibrate your reality. But this old system works based on the conditioned self, the one that has learned to wait, to doubt, to hesitate, to control. And that is what prevents the new from manifesting. Neurofusion is the process of rewriting that system, replacing the old vibrational code with a new one. But be careful. This does not happen through force or mechanical repetition. It happens through emotion, because the subconscious does not understand logical language. It responds to the vibration felt, to the feeling experienced, to the internal imagery charged with emotional truth. And when you activate that state within yourself with enough intensity, your system begins to reprogram itself from the inside, without you having to force anything from the outside. Here's how it works. By closing your eyes and falling into a state of deep relaxation, you begin to create the scene of your new reality in your mind, but not in a cold and detached way. You have to feel it as if it were happening now. You have to walk into that mental image with your whole body, with your heart beating, with your senses activated. You hear the sounds, see the details, breathe the atmosphere as if you were really there. And while you do this, your brain doesn't know if it's really happening or just imagination. It simply registers, this is real. And that's when the magic begins, because the more you repeat this process, the stronger the neural networks connected to the new identity become. The more you feel the emotion of that experience as if it were happening now, the more your body starts to produce the chemical signals of, it's already here. And over time, your natural vibration shifts. And when that happens, the field starts to respond. It's no coincidence that after intense neurofusion practices, people report unlikely encounters, unexpected offers, sudden shifts in the dynamics of life. It's not a miracle, it's vibrational programming, because you've stopped being the you who feels and you've become the you who already is. And when that change happens inside, the world begins to rearrange itself to reflect the new state you maintain. But the most important detail is that all this does not happen noisily. There are no flashing lights or dramatic signs. The transformation happens silently, in the small daily choices, in the moment you realize that you no longer react as you used to. When you feel that something inside you has clicked, that the version of you that had to fight no longer makes sense. And this is the beginning of the detachment from the old identity, the most sensitive and most liberating part of this entire process, the death of the old self, where the miracle begins. It is in this silent point, where the new state begins to settle within you, that the deepest and often most challenging part of true manifestation begins. Because now it is no longer about imagining what you want. It is about radically letting go of the version of you that no longer serves you. The old identity, the you that doubts, that waits, that still sees itself as separate from what it wants to live. This is the sacrifice that no one told you about. And no, it is not a sacrifice of pain. It is not suffering. It is a breakup. It is liberation. But it requires courage, because that old you has built an entire story about who you are. It has held on to the traumas, the beliefs, the failures, the fears, as if they were truth, as if they were part of your DNA. And even though that version is what is holding you back from manifesting, it is familiar, and familiar to the conditioned mind means safe. But you cannot live the new while remaining the old. Reality only changes when you stop supporting what keeps it the same. And that means letting go of the identity that complains, that blames the world, that waits for signs, that vibrates in lack. That identity doesn't need to be fixed. It needs to die. And that is why so many people fail, even after they have intellectually understood the whole process, because they don't want to release the old self. They try to drag the vibrational baggage into the new cycle, but the baggage is the blockage itself. The universe responds to your being, not your desire. And if your being is still rooted in the version that doubts, no matter how much you visualize, affirm, or declare, the vibration will not support the change. Thoth said it clearly, nothing that is true can be lost. And that sentence, though simple, carries a profound code. For all that you truly are, your essence, your soul, your creative power will never be destroyed by letting go of the old self. What disappears is only the illusion, only the character built to survive in a world where you believed yourself to be separate from power. When you let go of that version, you don't leave a void, you create a space, and that space is fertile. It is in that space that the new begins to blossom effortlessly, without struggle, because you have stopped resisting. You have stopped holding on to the stories that kept life from aligning. And in that exact moment, the silent miracle begins, because you are no longer trying to force a new reality. You have become someone with whom it aligns, naturally. This transition does not need to be loud. It does not need to be announced. You do not need to post that you are changing or convince anyone. You simply start moving differently, thinking differently, feeling differently. Your decisions carry a new tone. Your words change frequency. The energy in your eyes begins to speak before you even open your mouth. And those who are paying attention feel it. And that is when everything changes. When you realize that reality does not need to be pushed, manipulated, or forced. Reality does not resist someone who lives in coherence. And those who live in coherence do not struggle. Look around you. The sun does not wake up in doubt. The trees are not afraid to grow. The ocean does not hesitate to move. All nature operates in the divine state, not because it tries hard, but because it remembers what it is. Every being, every element carries an internal code that guides its expression in the world, and you have that code too. The problem is that you have been taught to doubt it. From a young age, you have been conditioned to prove yourself, to deserve, to fight, to become someone. But what Thoth has revealed to us in the spaces between words, in symbols, in silences, is that effort is not a sign of power. It is a sign of disconnection. The more you have to force, the further you are from the source. Entering the divine state does not mean letting life carry you or folding your arms expecting miracles. It means aligning your frequency with the intelligence that is already operating in everything. And when that happens, things flow with ease. The right people appear, paths open up, decisions feel light, because you are no longer vibrating against the flow. You have become part of it. At this point, you no longer feel the need to explain anything, because your field speaks for you. Your presence begins to make an impact effortlessly. It is as if the entire universe recognizes who you have become and begins to cooperate, not out of obligation, but out of resonance. And when that synchronicity stabilizes, a key appears that few know how to use consciously: the word. Because now it no longer comes from an anxious mind. It comes from the vibrational center. It brings with it coherence, direction, clean intention. And that is why it begins to hold real power. Thoth said, "As it is spoken, so shall it be done." But what he called spoken was not just words from the mouth. It was emitting, vibrating, declaring with the entire being. A voice that does not just come from the throat, but that echoes from the soul to the skin. A voice that does not ask, but commands. That does not desire, but manifests. And when you access that level of speech, you stop speaking just to speak. Every sentence becomes a code. Every sound becomes a seed. Every verb choice vibrates in the field as a direct instruction. And the most impressive part? The universe does not argue. It follows because it recognizes vibrational authority, not social, not external. Vibration. At this stage, you begin to realize that your current reality is exactly the reflection of what you have said about yourself, out loud or silently. And that realization is liberating, because it puts the power back where it has always belonged, to you. When you declare, the world responds. And this is where your voice becomes a decree. When you say, "It is already done," you are not casting a wish into the wind. You are activating a frequency of completion. You are no longer asking permission from the universe. You are communicating a vibrational reality that already exists and just needs to be reflected. In this state, coincidences are no longer considered luck. They become signs of the field reconfiguring itself. Little confirmations begin to appear in your daily life. A name that keeps coming up, an unexpected encounter, an opportunity that seemed impossible and appears out of nowhere. But you sense deep down that none of this is coincidence. They are reflections of a field that now responds to a clear vibrational command. And the most fascinating part is that you are no longer trying to control anything. You are not trying to convince life to give you something. You are vibrating as someone who already has it, and that vibration creates magnetism. People begin to perceive your presence differently. Your posture changes. Your gaze becomes firm. Your language transforms. Everything about you begins to say, "I am." And the field does not argue with someone who already is. Thoth showed us that reality responds to the level of alignment between what you declare and what you vibrate. If there is doubt, the field hesitates. If there is internal conflict, the field fragments. But when there is unity, everything aligns. That is why, at this point, declaring is different from repeating. You are not trying to convince anything. You are simply reflecting what you have already recognized as true within yourself. And that coherence is the greatest catalyst for manifestation there is. You start living from the inside out. The outer world becomes a mirror of your inner world. And the longer you stay in that vibration, the faster the outer reality adapts to it. Because the universe doesn't create out of nothing, it responds. And if you change your base frequency, the scene must change too. But there is something even deeper. When you hold this new vibration consistently, without falling back into the old self, the how dissolves. You no longer need to know in detail how everything will unfold, because something bigger than your mind is already orchestrating the connections, the encounters, and the paths. And that's when true alignment happens. That's when you release control. That's when you stop looking at the clock. That's when you stop measuring progress with your eyes and start measuring it with how you feel. You realize that time is not against you, it's within you. And the perfect moment is not a fixed point in the future, it's a vibrational state that you activate now. In that moment, the seeker disappears because there is nothing left to search for. There is only room to be. And being is the most creative state there is. In it, everything flows, everything works together, everything responds, because you have finally gotten out of the way and allowed the flow of life to move through you. And that's when Thoth's most powerful secret stops being a distant idea and becomes a living experience. You feel it in your body, you feel it in your breath, you feel it in the silence between thoughts, a certainty without explanation, a peace that needs no logic, a trust that comes from the spirit and dissolves fear, and there is no going back. Because once you enter this state, any attempt to return to who you were before simply doesn't fit anymore. The old pattern doesn't have the same flavor anymore. Suffering loses meaning, haste vanishes, and the miracle becomes your new normal. Reality bends, not because you forced it, but because you became the field. If you have come this far, it is no small feat. Right now in the comments, I am ready to live my new reality. This seals your commitment to this new vibrational state and helps keep that frequency active in your field. If what you have heard has resonated in your heart, then this is the time to give back energy. Leave a like to anchor this vibration in your field. And if you have not already done so, subscribe to the channel now. Each video will be a reminder, a spark, an invitation to remember who you really are. I wish that every step from here on is moved by the silent certainty that your spirit has always known the way. And as the world changes shape around you, may you finally recognize yourself as the source. With all that you are, I see you, I honor you, and I wait for you in the next leap. See you soon.